When should you take Social Security? If you ask the internet, you're going to get two different answers. Take it at 62 because tomorrow isn't promised, or wait until 70 because the math says so. But I wanted to know what actual retirees think. Not financial advisors, not calculators, not headlines. Real people who already made this decision and they're living with the results. So I researched. I went through thousands of comments from retirees sharing when they filed, why they filed, and then whether they'd do it again. Then I combine that with what I see every day as a financial planner, working with people in this exact situation. 7 clear patterns emerged. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand this decision better than most people who have already made it. And real quick, if you're approaching this decision right now, you want someone to look at your specific numbers and help you figure out the right timing for your situation, that's exactly what I do at Riverbend. There's a link in the description below to book a free discovery call. All right, let's get into what I found. The most common decision by far was taking Social Security at 62. And the most common reason was some version of life is too short or tomorrow isn't promised. But when I look closer at the people who took it at 62 and genuinely have zero regrets, not the ones who just say they're happy, but the ones who describe their actual lifestyle and it clearly works, a pattern jumped out. They were all debt-free. Here's what one commenter said. I took mine at 62, my mortgage is paid, I don't have any debt, no credit cards, no car payment, and I don't live beyond my means. It's the best decision I've ever made. Another one said, 62 is a great time as long as you have health insurance in place until age 65, and you become debt-free. They said it's been fun. Another one, plan to have no bills at that age. That's the key. Over and over, the same pattern. The people who take Social Security at 62 and they love their life, they're not the ones with the biggest benefit checks. They're the ones who eliminated their expenses first. When your monthly costs are $2,000 or $2,500 a month because you don't have a mortgage or car payment or credit card debt, a reduced Social Security benefit at 62 can actually cover most of your life. You're not stretching, you're not stressed. The math works because the expenses are low. But when someone takes Social Security at 62, they still got a $1,400 mortgage, a $500 car payment, and credit card minimums. That reduced benefit does not go nearly as far. That's when regret shows up. So lesson number 1, taking Social Security at 62 can absolutely work. But the prerequisite is getting your expenses as low as possible first. Debt-free is a nice milestone. For early filers, it's the thing that makes the whole decision work. Lesson number 2, and this one hit me harder than I expected. When I went through all these comments and I was looking for why people filed at 62, I really expected the top reason to be financial. Like I needed the money or the math made sense. That's not what I found. The number one reason people gave for filing early was that someone they loved died before they ever collected it. One person wrote this, "My father died from cancer at 63. He didn't get anything he put in. Everyone should take it at 62. Another one wrote, 62 because my mother died at 61. Dad died at 63. And another, my daddy died when he was 57, never drew a dime. His daddy died when he was 54, never drew a dime. And the last one here, my coworker on my job was set to retire. My job was planning a big retirement party for him. We sent out invites and he died before the party ever happened. Comment after comment after comment, the same story. Someone they loved, someone they worked with, they worked their whole life. They paid into a system for decades and then they never saw a dollar of it. And that experience shaped their decision more than any calculator ever could. And I want to be really, really clear about something. I'm not here to tell people that are making this decision for this reason that they're wrong. The fear is real. The grief is real. Watching someone you love die before they got to enjoy retirement, that's one of the most painful things a person can experience. And it makes complete sense that it would change how you think about your own timeline. But here's what I gently say to anyone watching this who recognizes themselves in these stories. Your fear is valid, and it should be a part of the decision, but it should only be a part of the decision. Because a decision that's driven entirely by grief without looking at your debt, your income, your spouse's situation, your tax picture, it might not actually serve the life you're trying to protect. The goal isn't to just collect something before you die. The goal is to build a retirement that works for as long as you live, whether that's 10 years or 30. All right, lesson number 3, and this one completely changed how I think about the wait until 70 crowd. When I look at the people who delayed Social Security to 70 and they don't regret it, I expected to find the spreadsheet people, the math optimizers, people who ran the break-even calculation and decided the numbers favored waiting. But that's not what I found. Almost every single person who waited until 70 and feels good about it, they did it for their spouse. Here's what one commenter wrote. I'm waiting until 70. My wife was a stay-at-home mom and raised our 2 boys. I want to make sure the survivor benefit is at the maximum amount for her. She deserves it. For over 30 years, she was my best friend, my helper, and the pillar of the family. Another one wrote this. My spouse is 20 years younger than me. I'll take the largest amount of Social Security possible, locking in the highest spousal benefit possible. The highest amount may be worth over 40 years of income by the time she passes. And another, my wife is 11 years younger than me. I am so waiting until 70. That way I know she will be protected after I'm gone. Here's what's happening. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse doesn't keep both Social Security checks. They keep the higher of the two. So if the higher earner took benefits at 62, then locked in a reduced amount, the surviving spouse is stuck with that smaller check for the rest of their life. And that could be 20 to 30 years. But if the higher earner delayed to 70, locked in the maximum benefit, that surviving spouse inherits the larger amount. For a lot of couples, that's the difference between the surviving spouse living comfortably and the surviving spouse struggling. The people who wait until 70 aren't doing it because they love math. They're doing it because they love their spouse. And that reframe matters because it means the decision to delay isn't about optimizing a spreadsheet. It's about protecting someone. Now, if you're watching this and you're starting to realize that your Social Security decision is more complicated than you thought, that's actually a good thing. It means you're thinking about this the right way. If you want someone to look at your specific situation, your benefit amount, your spouse's benefit, your tax picture, all of that, and help you figure out the right timing, that's what we do at Riverbend. There's a link in the description below to book a free discovery call. All right, lesson number 4, and this is the one that I think is the most useful for anyone watching who's married. The smartest strategies I found in these comments, they did not come from people who picked either 62 or 70. They came from couples who split the decision. One commenter said it like this. As a married couple, one strategy is to take the smaller one as early as possible. Then wait as long as possible to start the bigger one. Because the surviving spouse gets the larger one, which means as soon as the first person dies, the smaller benefit's thrown away. So take the smaller benefit as soon as you can, get it while you can, and then maximize the larger one to the benefit of whoever lives the longest. Another couple said it this way. I took mine at 70 and now 79. My wife took hers at 62. Now she's 70. No regret. Another one. Husband took it at 62. I will take it at 67. 4th year of Roth conversions in the meantime at a lower tax rate. Here's why this works. When one spouse dies, the survivor doesn't keep both checks. They keep the higher one. The lower benefit disappears. So, every dollar the lower earning spouse collected before that point was money the couple got to use that they would have otherwise lost completely. Meanwhile, the higher earner delays as long as possible, ideally to 70, and they lock in the maximum benefit. That protects whichever spouse lives longer. You get the income now from the early benefit and maximum protection later from the delayed benefit. It's not an either or, it's both. And notice that last commenter. She mentioned Roth conversions because while her husband's early Social Security is covering some expenses, the combined income is still relatively low, which means they're in a perfect window to convert IRA money to Roth at a low tax rate. The Social Security decision and the tax strategy are working hand in hand together. And this is the kind of coordination that most people never consider because they think about Social Security as one person's decision, and it's not. If you're married, it's a joint decision, and the best answer usually isn't the same age for both of you. All right, lesson number 5, and that's the break-even math matters less than you think. So if you've researched Social Security at all, you've probably seen something called the break-even analysis. And it goes like this. If you take benefits at 62 instead of 70, you get smaller checks, but you get them for 8 extra years. And then at some point, usually around 78 to 82, the person who waited has received more total money than the person who took it early. That's the break-even point. And in theory, that should help you decide. If you think you're going to live past 80, wait. If you don't think you'll make it that long, take it early. But here's what actual retirees say about this. One commenter put it perfectly. If you collect Social Security early at 62 and you live beyond the break-even point, you'll regret the smaller monthly benefits. If you delay Social Security until 70 and pass away prior to the break-even point, you won't regret anything because you'll be dead. Another one. If I only knew when I was going to die, this would be super easy to calculate. And that's the fundamental problem with break-even analysis. It requires you to predict when you're going to die, and nobody can do that. So people end up making the decision based on a gut feeling, which means the math didn't actually help them decide anything. It just gave them a number to argue about. Here's how I think about it. The break-even calculation is useful as a reference point. It's good to know that the crossover is somewhere around 80 years old, but it is a terrible decision-making tool on its own because it treats every dollar the same. $1 at 62 when you're healthy and active is not the same as $1 at 85 when you might not even be able to leave the house. The break-even math doesn't know that. The better question isn't which option gives me the most total dollars over my lifetime. It's which option gives me the most security and flexibility given my health, my spouse, my other income, and the life I actually want to live? That is a totally different question, and it leads to a totally different answer. All right, lesson number 6, and this is one that I think reframes the entire conversation, and it builds upon point number 5. One commenter wrote something that stopped me in my tracks. Here's what they said. $1 at 62 when you're healthy is not the same as $1 at 85 when you can't even leave the house. And that's a really important idea that most Social Security analysis completely ignores. When you run a break-even calculation or you compare total lifetime benefits, every dollar gets treated equally. $1 at 62 counts the same as $1 at 85, and that's just not how life works. At 62, you're probably healthy. You can travel, you can get outdoors, you can be active, you can do the things you've been waiting your whole career to do. The money you have at that age, it's going to fund experiences, the trips with your spouse, the time with grandkids, the hobbies you want to do, the adventures you want to take. Those experiences have enormous value and you can't always have them later. And then at 85, your world gets smaller. You might not be traveling anymore. But the money you need at 85, that's not for vacations. It's for healthcare, it's for prescriptions, and potentially things like assisted living or in-home healthcare. And that money might actually be worth more per dollar than the vacation money because it's keeping you safe and it's keeping you cared for. So the value of money isn't constant across your retirement. It changes. Early dollars are going to fund your life. The later dollars are going to fund your security. And both of those matter. That's why the Social Security decision is so personal. If you're in great health at 62 with a paid-off house and a bucket list of things you want to do, there's a real argument for taking the money and going to live. If you're married and worried about what happens to your spouse in 20 years, well, there's a real argument for delaying and locking in the highest possible guaranteed income for whoever lives the longest. The right answer depends on which dollars matter most to you. The ones you'll spend in your 60s or the ones you're going to need in your 80s. And for most people, the honest answer is both. All right, lesson number 7, and this is one that ties everything together. After going through thousands of comments, combining that with what I see working with people every day, here's what I learned. The people who are the happiest with their Social Security decision, whether that meant taking it at 62, 67, or 70, they have one thing in common. They did not make the decision in isolation. They made it as a part of a bigger plan. The debt-free early filers didn't just take Social Security at 62 on a whim. They spent years paying off their house and eliminating their bills so the reduced benefit would actually cover their life. That's a plan. The spouses who delayed to 70, they didn't do it because a YouTube video told them to go do that. They looked at both the benefit amounts. They understood how the survivor benefit works, and they made a deliberate choice to protect the person they love. That's a plan. The couples who split the decision, with one filing early, the other one delaying till later, they didn't just stumble into that strategy. They looked at their combined income, their tax situation, their long-term needs, and they coordinated it all together. That's a plan. The people who regret their decision, almost every single one of them made it based on one factor, whether that was the fear of dying or wanting more money now, or a headline that said, always take it at 62 or always wait until 70. They didn't look at the full picture, and the full picture is what makes all of this make sense. So here's what I'd tell you. Stop asking, when should I take Social Security? It's just the wrong starting point. The right question is, what does my full retirement look like? What are my expenses? What other income do I have coming in? What does my tax situation look like year by year? Begin to write that out. Am I married? And if so, what does my spouse's benefit look like? What's my health? What kind of life do I want to live? When you answer those questions, the Social Security decision doesn't feel like it's a gamble anymore. It feels like the obvious next step in a plan you're already building. And that's the real lesson from studying 1,000 retirees. The ones who got this right didn't have a better calculator. They had a better plan. So now you know the 7 patterns behind the Social Security decision, straight from the people who've already made it. But Social Security is just one piece of the puzzle. I want you to see how all of this begins to fit together with everything else. So I made this video right here where I take you through what $1 million in retirement savings actually generates in monthly income when you factor in Social Security, taxes, withdrawal strategies. We go through 2 real scenarios, a married couple, a single person, both piece by piece. Take a look at it. I'll see you there.